Hi everyone, welcome to the Superhuman Switch, a mind body business empowering podcast of high achievers guaranteed to switch your superhuman levels on. I'm your host, Safwan. Today's podcast is a special edition for the Women's Month, and here we are honoring the achievements and the contributions of women. Today I'm joined with Jouhayna Mheiri. Jouhayna had made a history being the youngest and the second female to complete the air traffic control program in the United Arab Emirates. Her story, her inspiring story, made her as a model for Emirati women worldwide. She's a true warrior driven by grit and determination. I'm excited today to explore and share with you her inspiring journey and how she's managing all of this by taking care of herself and maintaining a balanced lifestyle. Jouhayna, of course, we can explain now this basically role that basically you mentioned in the air traffic control, but it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So first of all, I want to start with your nickname on the social media, which is the voice and the pilot's headset.
Yeah.
So how did you come with this name? Let's start with this one.
So I made the Instagram page a voice in a pilot's headset. And it's because quite literally I am the voice in a pilot's headset.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I tell pilots what to do, what aircraft, basically my job is to tell aircrafts what to do and how to fly in the sky. I tell them what speed to fly, what altitude to climb and descend to, ensuring they're on the correct flight path to reach their destination. Mm-hmm. And of course, to keep them separated from other aircraft and obstructions. Obstructions, as an example, Burj Khalifa, we have to make sure we separate aircraft from that. And any other obstructions like mountains naturally and things like that. So my job is to tell them what to do. And these are instructions they should follow in order to ensure safe skies. So I'm literally the voice that is in their headset, providing them with instructions to keep them safe in the skies of the UAE. That's why I came up with that handle. And it's an awareness page, and it's a page to educate and motivate and even empower people to know what air traffic control is. And some people just come up to me and they're like, oh, you've empowered me to follow my dream or do whatever needs to be done. So it's like an all-in-one page.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate the fact that when I looked into what you're doing now, that you enjoy speaking and going to events to speak about to spread the awareness about the career choices, and to empower the young kids how to look and overcome their challenges. So exactly. How basically you decided to not only take this huge responsibility, but also to take it outside of the scope of your work to really encourage others?
So not a lot of people know and believe me when I say I have a fear of public speaking. Mm-hmm. And I realized that I have a story to tell and that I would like to educate people about what air traffic control is. Because one-to-one or in a group or in a classroom, I'm good at explaining it. And when I was put on a stage to talk about it, I realized that on stage is when I realized I had a fear of public speaking. Mm-hmm. So I made the decision during the pandemic because I realized in 2019 I had the fear. So I decided to work in the pandemic to overcome that fear, and I hired a public speaking coach. We worked together on Zoom for 2 years, and then I started to take on events. So there was a lady, she's the president of Women in Aviation Middle East chapter. Mm-hmm. And she met me, and she's like, I just love your energy, I love your vibe, and I want you to host a show for me. And I was like, no. I was like, respectfully, no, I can't. I'm like, I have a fear of public speaking, and I don't see myself doing this. I'll help you organize, but I respectfully decline hosting. And she's like, no, you're going to host, and this is the date, and I'll see you then. Are you off? I'm like, yes. She's like, it's a sign. No reason. So I decided, I was like, okay, fine, I'll work on it. And then I was already working with my public speaking coach at the time. And she's like, this is an excellent opportunity to practice what we have been working on. Because so far, my only audience were my 3 dogs. Just looking at me like, are we going to get treats now? So I went on stage and I was hosting. So, as a host, you don't really have your own personal opinion that you include in a conference.
Okay.
You show up, you introduce yourself, you introduce the show, you highlight and greet the honorary guests that you have and the distinguished guests, and then you get the show on the road and you make sure everything is going on in time. So it's almost like air traffic control, but less stake in terms of human life.
Exactly.
And then while I was there, in order to get the show to flow, the advice my public speaking coach gave me was to add my own little bits about the previous thing that was spoken about on stage and then link it to the next thing that's going on. So I did that. And it would be like not even 10 to 15 seconds of me adding my own little opinion or just getting getting the show to flow. And people loved it. So I posted like a 7-second snippet of if you dream it, you can achieve it, and to follow your dreams. And I was quoting, I call her my sister in aviation, Dr. Engineer Saada Shamsi. She's absolutely excellent. And I quoted her, and then this video went viral on LinkedIn.
Nice.
And then Dubai Air Show's organizer reached out to me, and they're like, come and host our show. And then it was just a domino effect. And then I just post these little snippets of me quoting something or just honestly being sassy sometimes. And then it picks up and people want me to be part of their shows.
Nice.
So it went from hosting to come and do a keynote speech. We would like you to do an awareness session about air traffic control. So the Royal Aeronautical Society, which is like the oldest aeronautical society in the world, they reached out to me and they're like, come and do an awareness session for us in Dubai. So that's what I did. And I came up with an air traffic control game because I don't believe in death by PowerPoint, where somebody acts as the air traffic controller and then there are pilots and you have to get them from point A to point B in the room safely with certain rules to follow.
Interesting.
And then that game was a hit, and I've done it a couple times now. And it works with children from the ages of 10 and up, and even the adults are like, oh, I want to go on stage and do it.
Yeah.
So it was just super organic, but it was a lot of work I put in for those 2 years during the pandemic with my public speaking coach to reach where I am. But in terms of opportunity, it was just a domino effect. I was like, oh yeah, I'll come, like, your podcast. I know Noor. So I was like, yeah, I'll do your podcast. Someone will watch this. Then they'll be like, oh, I want her to come and speak. And then it's just a domino effect.
Absolutely.
So I'm just choosing to follow the dominoes and manage with a 6-coded color calendar, six color coded calendar, and hope for the best.
That's really cool transition. And let's go back a little bit to the traffic control, because I think it's a high responsibility, high stake role.
Yeah.
And we briefly discussed this offline. And I'm really interested, first of all, to understand why you picked this one and how's the journey was so far.
Okay. So air traffic control, not many people know about the field. So the favorite analogy I like to use, because I like Marvel and everybody gets it, is Spider-Man.
True. We relate to stories anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So Spider-Man's best friend, Ned. He calls himself the... You are?
No.
You're not? Okay. No. So basically, he's got...
I know the story.
Okay, so Ned is Spider-Man's best friend. Okay, and he's like, oh, I want to be the guy in the chair. And what he would do is he would speak to Spider-Man with his headset and watch over him on his computer screen and tell him, oh, it's safe to turn right. Do this, do that.
Okay.
So for air traffic control, we aren't Ned, but we're similar to Ned, where we speak to pilots and we tell them where it's safe for them to fly in the sky, following certain procedures that are set, telling them what speed to fly, what altitude to climb and descend to, telling them which flight path to take to ensure that they reach their destination safely.
Amazing.
So that's basically my job. And then for the adults, when I speak to them, I'm like, imagine like I'm the Google Maps voice for pilots in the sky. And I have a full picture. And every time Google tells you turn right or turn left, you have to think and think and decide, oh, is it safe for me to actually turn right and left?
Okay.
For pilots, they just have to turn right or left and follow the instructions, because we have a full picture of what's going on, and you simply just have to trust us, follow the instructions, and we can see all the air traffic that is around you and all the obstructions, as I mentioned earlier, like buildings and mountains, and then we navigate you around them. So yeah, and there are 3 different types of air traffic control as well.
That's definitely interesting as a frequent traveler, and of course we know the responsibility on the pilot. But the supporting system coming from the traffic control, I think it's a huge role that I think the whole ecosystem works perfectly well to avoid. And we all know that the traveling by plane is still the safest.
Yeah.
But why Jouhayna picked this? And this is where my mind is taking me, that how did you have the courage to take such a position or a role? And this journey, how was it?
So I had the courage because I didn't know what I got myself into.
Okay.
As ignorant as that sounds. So I'll explain why I didn't know what I got into. It is because air traffic control is still a relatively unknown field, even almost a decade after I've joined. And that's why I created the Instagram handle at Voice in a Pilot's Headset, so I can educate people that want to get into air traffic control and even spark the interest in joining air traffic control. So I had been very lost during and after high school because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do academically.
Okay.
I did ballets from the time I was 4 until 18. So I loved that. And I was like, oh, I'm good at teaching as well. So maybe this is an avenue that I can follow. And that's exactly what I was working towards. Then at 18, I had a really bad injury on both my ankles. And I decided I'm not going to continue because I knew I would struggle to walk later and things like that, because my ballet teacher had a similar injury and she struggled to walk properly at some point because, you know, of the injury that she had, and she never let it heal properly.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to follow in the same footsteps in that sense. And also my mom sat me down. She's like, Yalla, Jouhayna, you can't choose the academics. But by the time I had to choose the academics, it was too late because I already graduated high school.
Yeah.
So I decided that I was going to work in my mother's clinic. And she owned a veterinary practice with a kennel, a cattery, and I helped her with admin and showing people around to let them know, oh, this is where your pets will stay, and I'll be here every day to play with them. And I played with every single animal every day, making sure they all got the love.
It's your Disney, yeah?
Yeah, my Disney, literally. It was great. I was rocking a farmer's tan and everything. It was it was excellent.
Amazing.
And I really enjoyed working with my mother, but I knew that wasn't my calling. She wanted me to become a veterinarian because I had a natural knack for things like, you know, I would scrub in with her at surgeries and, you know, just help hold all the tools and things like that. And I wasn't squeamish or anything. But I also was very organized in a sense where I helped her run the business, watch all the financial accounts and everything. So I was quite literally her all-in-one. And I decided that even though I'm good at this isn't for me. I wanted to do something else. And as a child, you know, when everybody kind of knows what they want to do in life, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted a cool job and I wanted to make a lot of money. That was it. But what it was, I had no idea. Yeah. What it was, I had no idea. So I decided to tell my mom. I was like, look, Mama, I can't see myself doing this. At the same time, you know, I feel like my mom allowed herself to get very burnt out, and she never took a break because she was the sole financial provider for us growing up, and she had that responsibility on her shoulders. So I started to see that, you know, she was getting tired. She had myself and my sisters later in life. So I was like, okay, if I do choose to pull away from working at the clinic, because I could feel like if she doesn't run it, and if I'm not there and she refused to hire anybody else, it will shut down. And eventually it did. Because my mom truly got so burnt out. She's like, I can't go to work. So I decided to apply to different scholarship programs while I was working with her. Anything and everything. You know, we're blessed as Emiratis to have programs that pay you while they train you, and then you get the job at the end. But they're very competitive. They're very tough to stay in, and they really make you work, you know. So I applied for urban planning, engineering, civil, aviation, pilot program, all the airlines. And I either didn't hear back from any or I didn't make the cut. Because it is extremely competitive, and, you know, I focused on academics, but not to the potential I could have reached in school.
I see.
So I decided, I was like, okay, well, that's it. I'm going to cave in. My mom told me, like, look, Jouhayna, just go to university and study business so you have a degree. And my mom believes it's very important to have a paper in your hands in terms of, I have a bachelor's in this, a master's in this, PhD. So I said, okay, Mom, I'm going to cave in. I'm going to follow what you've advised me to do. And I joined university, and I only lasted there for 2 months because I got the selection process examination email from the company that I work for now. And they're like, come do the exams. And then after that, there's an interview. And if you pass the interview after doing the examinations, then if you make it through, then, you know, you can join our company. So I didn't want to dishearten my mother, you know, like every time I got rejected or I didn't get a call back, it brought us down, you know. And my mom's my best friend, so we both really felt it. So I decided I'm not going to tell her. I'm going to go and I'm going to do these exams. And I didn't cover at the time. I cover now, but at the time I didn't cover. So I go there with like a braid, a neon yellow, long sleeve for respect, long sleeve shirt, but neon yellow. And I'm sat there in an ocean of like kandora and abayas. And I'm just there in my yellow
Okay.
A long sleeve top.
Outlier.
Yeah, quite literally. So it was an English math and English math physics exam that I had to do, time pressured. Basic stuff, but very time pressured. Like you had to finish accurately and quickly. I feel like I tunnel visioned and I blacked out because I can't remember how it went, but clearly it went well because I passed that process. Then they emailed me, come do the interview.
Interesting.
Yeah, because truly I can't. I just remember I'm like, I just have to finish and I'll do it as the best that I can.
Okay.
And it was so stressful that I don't remember the way I got through it, but I just remember at the end I was really hungry. So
You burned a lot of calories
I
in the
did.
process.
My brain was done.
Yeah.
So then afterwards, I found that I made it through, and I have to go to Abu Dhabi to do the interview.
Okay.
So this time, I decided not to go in neon yellow. I got myself like a nice work top and like a full
You
like.
put the effort to.
Yeah, I did because I was like, okay, I have to let them
Serious.
know. I even straightened my hair, trying to be like, oh, professional or whatever. Not that hair texture matters, but that's how I felt I should present myself. So this time I told my mom because how am I going to explain the fact that I come back with an empty tank of fuel and I'm gone for all of these hours doing what? What? And we're best friends. So this was hiding it from her this whole time was tough anyway. So I'm like, look, mama, I passed the exams. I have to do this interview. She's like, yalla, let's go. We'll spend the night in Abu Dhabi. In the morning, you'll be fresh and we'll go. I was like, okay. So that's exactly what I did.
But she didn't know exactly what's.
Well, I told her I got into air traffic.
Okay.
Or I'd have an interview for them. And she's like, what's that? I'm like, I'm going to work with planes. And she's like, okay. And when we got there, she's like, oh, the building's really shiny. There's no dog hair anywhere. Like, it was so clean, And we had, like, so many animals growing up. So I was like, oh, my God. I feel like I can't even sneeze in here.
Okay.
So then what did we do? Yeah, so I did the interview. My mom waited for me in the parking. And then that was it. We went, we ate, we hung out. And then I found out, like, a couple of weeks later, I got in. And I have to move myself from Ajman to Abu Dhabi. And I was 19. So I remember even when I was prepping for the interview, I still didn't exactly know what air traffic control is. So I Googled it and I found this really old documentary on YouTube and I watched it and I was like, okay, air traffic controllers control planes. And there's people in the tower that do that. And that's what I went into the interview with. And I told them, I did research, but this is all I could find and understand.
Yeah.
And they were happy with me for actively doing the research as well. So that was a good tip. And anybody who's interested in air traffic, do the research and then go for the interview.
That's true.
You'll be surprised at some people who show up and literally don't know anything.
Yeah.
But I did the research after I knew I had the interview. So, I found out a little bit too late. And even after I joined, then I realized how intense it is and how stressful it is. It didn't factor in, it didn't click how stressful the job was going to be until I joined day one. And I was like, oh my God, what is all of this?
A lot of.
It's information overload, and they try to pressure you from day one because if you can't handle paperwork, how are you going to handle airplanes?
Wow. Okay.
So
that's
yeah. So, and you know what? I put in the work for 2.5 years of the training, and here I am now teaching about air traffic on top of doing the actual job itself.
That's interesting transformation from you have no clue what you want to do to jump into something really hectic and really, I think, a lot of pressure and requires a lot. I assume you went through a lot of difficulties. But entering an environment that, one, you're not familiar with, and especially that you are a woman.
And I was 19. I wasn't even an adult
Young,
yet.
19, you're not familiar. How did you face this kind of mental challenge that, okay, how can I step and how can I sustain this kind of challenge?
So I feel like I was really lucky and blessed that I had really good mentors around me, and you're always going to get positive and negative. And I chose to focus on the positive. And the people that supported me and told me, look, you can do it, keep pushing. There were instructors I worked with, other air traffic controllers that had already made it, that saw me as a trainee, and they're like, look, just keep going, it's going to be worth it. At 21, your salary bump is like almost 5 or 6 times your trainee salary. I was like, what? I'm going to make it. I was financially motivated. And I also believe that the fact that my mom's life was falling apart at the time, she was separating from my dad. She decided, and then she couldn't go to work because of the state that she was in. So the business shut down. So I knew that if I don't persevere, there's no income in going into the house. So I was giving my mom at least 75 to 80% of my monthly salary to make sure that she paid for the house. And my two younger sisters had the stability to continue going to private school. So I knew that if I don't show up and I don't put the work in, there won't be a paycheck, and then my mom and siblings will struggle. I knew we'd figure it out if I didn't, but I have the opportunity to provide them with stability. And when I knew what the salary was at the end, I was like, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So I feel like it wasn't just a responsible job I took on, but I took a responsibility of being like the woman of the house. And it wasn't just about me. And I only had a plan A and no plan B to fall back on. So I fell right into it.
And of course, you're grateful for this transition, but then you figured out, because all what you're doing now is not this incident or not the main driver now. It's because you fall in love with all the spectrum of air control and the journey of it. I think this is what it has, a nice mix that you persevered, but you reach a point that you don't have this kind of complexities, but at the same time you fall in passion of how you're delivering this passion to others.
Yeah, and I do love the job. You know, I say it's my arranged marriage. You know, I got into it and I was like, oh, okay, it's not that bad. You know, so yeah, and I do love it. I love what I do. I can't see myself doing anything else. And honestly, this job is so intense that I would be bored with anything else. Truly, like, you know, the idea of going into an office job or anything like that, I truly feel like I would need it to be an extremely challenging job to keep me interested and motivated.
Yeah.
Because the stakes are so high when I go to work. You know, you cannot mess up. You know, if you go into an office job and you mess up an email, it's not going to hurt anybody. Mm-hmm. You go to work as an air traffic controller, and if you're not on your A game, the consequences can be detrimental.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
How are you facing the mental challenge, and how you're taking care of yourself to make sure that you're sane?
You have to be a little insane for this job anyway. So, but what do I do? So I feel like it's very important to have an outlet. You know, I feel like everybody needs to. Like earlier when we were offline, we were talking about ice baths, meditation. You know, I feel like I needed to really learn to focus on my health, mm-hmm. especially after the pandemic. Because during the pandemic, before the pandemic, actually, I used to work out all the time. I was conscious of what I ate and everything. Then the pandemic hit and I was like, stopped moving. And I was like, if I stopped moving, I'm just going to eat what I want. And then I piled on like 25 kilos in 2 years. I know, I'm an overachiever.
It's like, yes, it's in your DNA.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm gonna choose to let go, I'm gonna let go. You know, so in that time as well, I contracted COVID in 2020 of November. Mm-hmm. November 2020, I contracted COVID. And in that time, I really struggled to breathe. You know, thankfully we have aviation medicals that made sure that I was fit to continue working. Yeah. But I noticed that my breathing wasn't 100%. Mm-hmm. When my mom was like, oh, you can't breathe because you're fat, so just lose the weight. I'm like, okay, mommy.
That's encouraging.
Thanks. This is our relationship. We're very blunt with each other. There's like zero bullshit. Okay. Like nothing.
Amazing.
You know, so she's African. Like you would never have to guess with her. So I decided I was like, okay, I'm going to start walking every day. And I did enjoy my walks in the past. So I decided to start incorporating that when we had more flexibility and less restrictions and we could go outside. And I realized I was struggling to walk because I gained so much weight. My joints were hurting. So I really, truly overachievingly let myself go. I started running again. Amazing. And last year, what I focused on is to make sure I move every day. So I hired a rehab coach. She's excellent. And she helped me literally learn how to move my body properly again. You know, like before I would do box jumps without thinking. Now, the thought of doing that was daunting a year ago. Yeah. Now, even though I'm still a big girl, I'll get it done. The mobility is back, which is amazing. So this year, the focus is on staying consistent with that. Mm-hmm. Eating well. Like every morning, I make my own ginger shots and I freeze them. And then every morning I'll have like a ginger shot or the start of my day depending on the shift. So ginger shot, making sure I get daily movement in. The idea of exercise, I have a negative correlation to that word. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to move every day because my body needs to move because then she feels good after.
True.
So, I'll get my daily movement in. However it is, I'll have 3 dogs, so I'll walk one at a time,
Not together, huh?
No, it's too much. Too much.
Okay.
And then what else do I do? On my days off, I like to go get ice baths done. I just feel so good after. And then we go eat ramen, so cancel it out. And then what else? Yeah, I meditate.
Yeah.
I meditate. So we spoke about this, but I do guided meditation with this app called Balance. And not only has it helped me be more in tune with myself and my breathing and given me that peace of mind in like 10 minutes or less, time management.
Yeah.
But it also has helped me figure out how my thoughts are. So even while I'm working, there's this technique called labeling. So while you meditate, it's tough to focus, right?
Yeah, true.
So you're meditating, inhale, exhale, ooh, I feel like McDonald's later. And then that thought, instead of judging yourself, like stop thinking about that, you just go thinking. So that's what I started to do during my meditation. And I remember while I'm at work as well, while I'm working, you get really busy spells, and then sometimes it gets a little bit quiet and then it gets busy again. It just depends on the traffic pattern.
Yeah.
So when it's busy, of course, you're fully focused. But when it's quiet and you have like no airplanes, then it's just like, la, 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 la. It's your mind wanders, and it happens to everybody.
True.
So after meditation, I realized, and I could identify that, and I could just refocus. Even if I have no airplanes, it's important to focus on the traffic that's going to come and things like that. So meditation has helped me not only find more peace of mind, but also it has helped me enhance my way of thinking while I work. And I feel like it's actually made me a better controller. So
The focus on control, I think it exponentially changed the way you think of it. And thank you for the tip before we start with the breathing techniques, because also I practice them, but sometimes we fall in trap that, okay, we're not following the right process. But yeah, meditation, I cannot emphasize about the importance, but yeah, it's a journey based on this, I think you learned multiple hacks or activities you do on a daily basis, and it's coming from the ups and downs. I would really interested to highlight what's the biggest challenge you went through in that whole journey. Let's highlight the biggest one.
Biggest challenge was the air traffic control program. And anybody on this earth that has ever done an air traffic control program will say it is extremely tough. And the unit that I work for, it's have you ever opened up Flight Radar and you're waiting for a flight to land in the UAE?
My son follows me and
yeah,
bit by bit where I'm. He dropped me a message that, okay, you're almost over Qatar and you're coming to Dubai, so it's crazy.
Exactly. So, he's already an air traffic controller. But you open up Flight Radar and you look at it, and there's so much congestion in the skies. It's busy all over the world.
Yeah, true.
So the unit I work for, we work the whole UAE airspace. So it is quite busy, and you have to train to be able to handle that. And the training is 2.5 years long. And it's very good that it's that long because you learn everything you need to know. So when you're done, you are ready to handle the traffic. But it's 2.5 years of extremely high stress because you're learning so much in what feels like a short span of time. Doctors have a long time to learn, like 5-7 years.
Yeah.
We have to specialize in this, and we're impacting more life than they are in their whole career in one shift in 2.5 years. So I feel like it was a lot of information. It was tough. I was the only girl in a batch of 6. And at the beginning, I feel like the boys didn't exactly know. Like, they thought I was a show-off because I spoke English well. My Arabic isn't good. So they automatically thought I was a show-off. And I was so focused on, I have to work hard and I have to be the best. But it's not the best compared to them. I have to be the best so that I make sure that I keep this guy safe. But, at the beginning, they misunderstood me. And they're like, oh, well, you're just a show-off. And then I spoke to them, and then they realized, no, this girl really needs to put the work in. And I was open about what the family situation was at home. And they're like, oh, okay, we get it now. It's not even I told them, I'm like, it's not even about you. So when the boys and I banded together and we decided to become more of a team rather than, the initial misunderstanding and competition,
True.
we just lifted each other up. And we did so well that we were the biggest batch to validate ever in the facility.
Amazing.
So I think, and for me, I think it's because we all truly cared about lifting the other up. You know, it's very easy to turn it into competition.
That's true. I think in any field, I believe that there is level of competition. But you specifically, especially that you are in the unit, the only lady, and you have a lot of competition in that space, or basically this industry, it's dominant by men.
Yeah.
So I can imagine the journey that you took, but it's you opened up with others and they told them, listen, it's definitely not about you, and something that I aspire to, and I have my own challenges. So I'm not trying to prove anything to you, I'm proving it to myself.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, when you clear the air up in that way as well, you know, we worked together, and even though we were going through such a tough training program, because we had each other, it was easier and it was better. And you know, when we would go and we would finish work, we'd all go rest, take a nap, rejuvenate, and then we'd come back at 5 p.m. and I would tell the boys, I'm like, I'm going to study at Costa Coffee, and we all have to continue working. So if you want to join me, come join. But otherwise, you know, I'll see you at the college tomorrow. And we would all come, show up, study together. And, you know, some things you would understand, some things they would understand better. And then we'd fill the gaps in. And then we'd make a list. And the next day we'd go to the teacher and we're like, explain all of the following. Because we have to be thorough.
True.
So instead of doing that alone, you know, it was the 6 of us working together. So it was a very, very challenging time. But because the boys and I were very compatible after we cleared the air, that helped. I had different instructors that were in the training college that were so supportive, and they would even pull me aside and just give me a pep talk. You know, there was one instructor called Mheiri, and he just sat me down. He's like, listen, Jouhayna. He's like, by 21, you're going to have financial independence. You'll be able to travel the world, and people that know what air traffic is are going to respect you so much because you're going to say that, oh, I'm an air traffic controller, and they'll be like, wow, you must be smart. So,
amazing.
You know, even them taking the time out of their day to motivate me and push me in that way, because you have your ups and downs, that all meant so much to me and helped me continue the challenge. So it was challenging, but it helped having the right people around me. And I feel I was just lucky.
I wouldn't say it's luck. I don't believe that much of luck, but you created this environment because you opened up and you showed your leadership skills just to show that, okay, I'm taking over of my situation. And you open up with all of them, and I'm sure that with their support put you in that position and it's taking you forward. How all this experience now taking it forward with the young generation, and you've participated and I listened to some of your speaking events. It was really inspiring. And what's the key message that you can deliver to the young lady especially, and how to accept the challenge and how to focus on what she likes?
So, you know, I think that right now the biggest topic for the month of March is to embrace equity, you know, and people need to understand the difference between equality and equity. So equality is when you're given the exact same tools to succeed, whereas equity is when, based on your needs, you're given tools to succeed. So I feel like it's important to highlight the fact that as long as you enable yourself and give yourself the appropriate tools to help yourself succeed based on what you want to do. So I feel like the first most important thing is to ask yourself, what do you want? And I feel like, you know, in Arab and even African culture, because I'm mixed race, everything depends on what your auntie wants, what your uncle wants, what society thinks of you. What do you want? Truly, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? Or, well, that's quite a daunting one, but you know, we're talking about a job that you want to take up, or your life path that you want to follow. So I feel the first most important thing to ask yourself is what you want, and be very honest with yourself and not factor in what anybody else thinks. Then you trace back. What do you have to do to get there? What steps do you need to take in order for you to ensure that? So as an example, I made the decision that this year the focus is to continue to work on my health. So I grind up those ginger shots and make sure that every day I have them. So I'm enabling myself with taking out 10 minutes to be able to give me, ginger shots for the whole month. So take the steps that you need to do in order to be able to prepare yourself. Wait, how do I say this properly? I feel like I'm going in circles.
I'm following your flow.
You're following my flow?
Yeah, it's like how you make sure that you are looking at not from the short term, but at least from a long term by
Yeah,
taking the small steps
exactly.
and not to look into the outcome,
Yeah,
just
exactly.
to look into these kinds of like small
Yeah.
compound effects.
Yeah. And there's a lot of little things you do that will lead you towards the big thing, you know? So make sure that whatever step you choose to take is putting you in the correct trajectory to reach your end goal.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's the most important thing. And to also be aware of that as well. Because if you don't know what you want to do, how are you going to take the steps to get to where you need to be?
That's true.
You know?
And I love this perspective because there is a big difference between setting a goal and setting an intention. Because
yeah.
because the way you look into the goals are something that you put pressure as if you are, it will be a little bit intimidating to do the steps, where the intention might comes with up and downs and something that you might not like or have an impact on this outcome, but at least there is a growth trajectory to reach this point. But yeah, it's a total different perspective to look into it. It's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. And also, at the beginning, it's going to be very conscious. Like, I'm consciously doing what I need to do to get to my goal, you know? So I'm consciously making these, I'm going back to the ginger shots example. I'm consciously going to go out, buy ginger, make sure I grind it up, and then put it in an ice tray and freeze it for the month, you know? Whereas in a month's time or in a year's time, it won't even be something to think about.
It
It's
becomes
just,
part of your
Exactly.
lifestyle as a habit.
but because there's that end goal in place, initially what's conscious is going to become subconscious and just become second nature. So you have to also trust that process and give yourself the time. You know, there's that rule of thumb: you do something for 21 days and that's it, it's a habit. Well, every single person on this planet is different. So you have to give yourself a real shot to make it unconscious. So try for 21 days as a rule of thumb. But if you're not one to conform with the norm like me, you need a little more time, then that's also okay.
That's really interesting because by the end of the day, we try all the tricks and hacks to make sure that we structure a habit to follow. But yeah, it should be personalized. And I like the fact that you tested all the tools and you figure out how to keep improving and you put a milestone or an intention to, okay, achieve this year.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah, it's a practice that to figure out the best way to do it, and there is no one size fits all approach to it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, for example, I finished my bachelor's in air transport management, and what the natural step is, what my mother would want and my grandma is, go do your master's straight away, right? And I decided to rebel in a sense and be like, okay, what do I want? I don't want to go and sit through exams all over again and write about essays I'm not even going to remember in a couple of months. So I decided that the key is the intention is to learn more. So I made sure that no matter what, I listen to audiobooks because I don't have the time to sit and read, but I have long commutes. So for 38 minutes to work, 38 on the dot, not a minute more, you know, I will listen to something and I will learn something new every single day.
Love
I
it.
feel like in that way, I'm actually learning more through an app that I paid called Blinkist. Are you aware of Blinkist?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Blinkist, it gives you 15-minute nuggets of information. And I feel like, honestly, through Blinkist, I learned more than what my degree gave me.
Love it.
And the most important thing is to learn something new every day. So that is what I did. I might not be getting a degree for it, but I feel like I have a lot of knowledge about different things instead of focusing on getting that paper and that master's. But in that time of learning new things every day, I've realized the importance of doing that. So now I'm just trying to decide, do I want to go into learning about management, or do I want to go into learning about AI and tech? Because those options are available to me. So I need to decide what I want in that avenue, because now I'm at a fork in the road. I'm ready to start learning paperwork-wise, but what do I want to do? So I'm still doing soul searching. I'll let you know when the next time you go invite me over.
For sure.
Yeah.
So again, it's I love this fact that you discovered a way to keep educating yourself and leveraging on the commute, because this is what I realized, that I enjoy reading books, but I don't have the time to sit and read the book physically.
Yeah.
And the audiobook helped me out because I'm using the Amazon Audible, and I
Same.
used to commute like 15 minutes, and you can imagine that you can read a book a week, which
Yeah.
is, if you do the math of how many hours the book will take, 5 hours. So on average, it's like 1 week, one book. That's a very good investment, I would say.
Exactly. And even when I met your wife, Noor, I told her about Blinkist as well. I was like, you have your commute and you get stuck in traffic. And she was telling me about how she has so much on her mind. And she wants to make more out of her time.
Yeah.
I'm like, trust me, just put that app on and stop thinking.
That's true.
And you can't believe how much you absorb consciously and subconsciously. So I remember I told her about Blinkist, and every time I come across something I think she would like, I actually just send it to her. And then, that's my way of keeping in touch.
That's
Memes and Blinkists.
That's it's like, what's your switch when you came up basically with this and you achieved what you achieved in the aviation and air control, and now you are in a total different journey? What was basically the trigger that moved from that phase to become the voice, how to teach the others or the people that they're following you about this journey and how they can overcome their career choices?
So I think my switch, there's a different switch for different phases in my life, and not even phases, day to day, the way you switch. So when I'm going to go through each phase. Thankfully, I'm not too old, so it's not going to take an hour. Just medium old. So when I was 19, the switch was I have to provide for mom and the girls. That's it. I've taken the responsibility on, and then I realized I took on a big, big, big responsibility of air traffic. So the switch was that mother bear instinct. Khalas, I have to do it for them. Mm-hmm. And, even earlier we were speaking about children. I'm like, I've already raised my sisters. I'm done,
You didn't see anything yet. Yeah, please go on.
Oh, I know. So, that switch was there, and it was like a mother bear instinct for me. Because for me, my sisters are my babies, Yeah. So that was the switch then. Then when I was finishing my training, I found myself in a place where I was almost experiencing imposter syndrome. Now, I've put in so much work for all of these years, but I was like, I'm just this 21-year-old girl, and why should anyone listen to me? And again, I was blessed to have a good instructor by my side. His name was Joe as well, which is my nickname.
Yeah.
And he's like, listen, Joe, you've put in the work and you've worked so hard. It doesn't matter how old you are. You have the right to be here. And I was like, okay, Joe. So he helped me find that switch of, yes, I deserve to be here. So your switch doesn't have to be a switch that you switch on alone. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it helps, and you should also embrace the fact that somebody might help you have that switch. And then, while I'm working on a day-to-day basis and I have the switch every day, I have to remember to leave I have to leave everything that doesn't have anything to do with air traffic control outside of work. So even while I'm walking into the building, we have this big gate. I visualize, now I'm switching from anything that has nothing to do with procedures and airplanes and telling pilots what to do. Doesn't matter. For these 8 hours, I'm switched from Jouhayna to Joh. So at work, we have 3-letter codes. So mine is JOH. Mm-hmm. So Jouhayna to Joh. That's it.
Interesting.
The only thing I care about are airplanes and pad thai, because that's what I love to get delivered to work. And then that's the switch that I have. Then when I leave work, you have to switch from Joh to Jouhayna. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to go home. I'm going to be the mother of my 3 dogs and hang out with my husband. And that's not where you need to be this technical person who is very focused and organized and getting things done quickly and efficiently.
Yeah.
I have to be Jouhayna, softer. All I care about are my dogs. I can't make any decisions outside of work. Don't ask me what I want to eat, where I want to go, nothing. No. It's out. And that's my switch. Mm-hmm. So it's a switch to turn superhuman and also absolutely basic.
That's really impressive, of course. Yeah.
Lots of different switches, to motivate myself to get my daily movement in. That switch is rusty, doesn't want to move. But it has to be there. So then in this sense, this is where you get support. So my husband, he's all about fitness. So he'll help me press that switch.
You picked him wisely.
I did, yes. 100%. It was very strategic. I was planning to be single till I was 99. Then 100, I'll look. So that was the goal. I never had the aspirations to get married, or I never even thought that, I would love to meet someone one day. But when I met him, I was like, you're cool. I accept. You're welcome.
But the moment everyone says that I'm not looking, that means that it's like it will come like a hammer on the head. Yeah,
I guess so. But to be honest, I made the decision very early on. I think I was 13 when I decided that absolutely not. And then at 19, I rechecked and I'm like, nope, only air traffic. And then at 21, I was like, alhamdulillah, I'm making enough money. Definitely nope. It's like, no, thank you. So so it every time I did a self-check, because I feel it's important to do that. I was like, yeah, no, still content. Very happy to be the third, fifth, seventh wheel, easily.
Okay.
And I always was, you know, and I never really thought twice about it. Now, if anything, it's more stressful to have a person, because I'm like, oh, I don't have to think about what I want, but also what they want as well. And this is the only time I think about what they want, because I feel it's important to have that partnership.
This will take another episode to speak about this type of relationship. About you, of course, you can have it as an additional responsibility, but at the same time as a place where you can find your peace and your mental.
There's a lot
depends.
of no. I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't have chosen to be with him if he didn't bring me that essential peace, you know.
Sure.
But I think the only reason why it would be stressful is because for me, I have to consciously now think of someone else, where it's never something I ever thought I would do or think I had to do. And again, it's the conscious thing I'm doing to have the trajectory to be on, to have a successful and happy marriage.
Yeah.
And hopefully, at some point, it's going to become unconscious, like we discussed earlier.
True.
You know, but also not losing oneself in that journey.
That's true. This is basically where most of the challenges happen between the couples, to make sure that you have your self-identity, that you enjoy it. And at the same time, when the spouse or this type of relationship, to make sure that it's not influenced by any kind of like different interests.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I think this is a dedicated open discussion later on, but I'm interested to know what's next for you. What are your mission in life now, since now you're embarking in really amazing and inspiring speaking events, encouraging the kids, but what's next for you?
So right now, to be honest, I just really want to focus on my health, because I feel like I've ignored that for such a long time, and I've gotten better in terms of my mobility. My breathing is literally at an athletic level. Don't ask me to take stairs, but I can run now, which is nice. You know, so the focus is my health. That's the primary focus. In terms of my career, I love air traffic. I plan on doing that. And I'm also an instructor. So I love to guide somebody and watch them reach their goals every day to become an air traffic controller and work on their own one day. Like, I love it. I love it so much.
Nice.
So I plan on continuing to do that for as long as I literally can and can mentally take on. And thankfully, you know, I'm mentally strong with all the experiences I've had. So I plan to stay there for a while. In terms of my education, again, now that I'm listening to all the Blinkists and I've been nourishing my mind with all this new information, I feel like I'm ready to do university again. So I don't know what I'm going to do. So what my plan is, again, I'm going to just apply to a bunch of them and see what works and then make that decision. But I'm going to make myself open to, you know, everything. Like, I'm going to go for tech, AI, in terms of soft skills, or, you know, I like working with people. I get along really well with many people. So I was thinking of psychology as well. So because I'm unsure, I'm going to just apply everywhere and see what I get back, because who knows, maybe they don't want to take me into the university as well. Like, this one is too much. So yeah, so I think I'm going to just pursue more of my education. I don't know exactly what, and I'm being very honest about that, because I have so many different avenues, alhamdulillah, and I don't take that for granted. But I need to be sure and make sure I'm making the right move for me. You know, my mom would love me to go into AI. But then I started coding and I was like, okay, I get it, but, you know, I'd rather work with people. So maybe I'll go into psychology, because I get along with people. People open up to me. I don't know what it is. Like, I will literally just go out, and even if I'm sat alone, people just come and just talk to me and tell me their whole life story and go away.
That's a rare, by the way, attribute.
Yeah.
And I think it's obvious from our conversation behind the podcast even that you have the skill. And on top of that, I think your activities by encouraging and speaking out and sharing your story, I think,
done. Psychology. You helped me decide.
Yeah, it's I can see it clearly.
Yeah. So
with your character and personality, it fits perfectly.
Yeah.
The technology can come smoother, but it's a long journey.
Yeah, it is. And I, like, you know what dharma is. So, you know, I feel like working with people is my dharma. So, you know, even when I'm at work and I'm working with my student, like, I just love working with them and everything. So maybe that's what I'll get into. You've actually helped me decide. So moment, a very interesting moment. Like, I'm glad it's on camera. And then with public speaking, you know, as I mentioned earlier, it was a domino effect, and I love it. And people message me and they're like, oh, I'm inspired by you. And for me, my mindset isn't I'm going to say XYZ so you get inspired.
Yeah.
I'm just sharing my story, and even my podcast, if anything, I wouldn't say it's negative, but it's just me highlighting the difficulties I went through and letting people know it's okay and you're not alone, because people don't like to talk about the ugly. So I'm just going to continue doing that. I'll work on my podcast. I don't know if I have the ability you have to have your amazing setup here.
No, actually, it will be a pleasure to support you on this, because
really?
I listened to some of your episodes. They're really inspiring.
Thank you.
But yeah, if we can discuss this offline, and I would love to support you on this one, because I see your value, and you should put yourself more out, seriously.
Yeah, because I love speaking, and I realized after my TED Talk that I wasn't done speaking on a public level. So that's why I started the podcast. But the effort to get my face done, figure out the cameras, figure out the mics, figure everything out was too much. So I just sit in my pajamas. My hair is all over the place. I'm telling my dogs to stop breathing, and I have a French bulldog, so that's tough. And I'm like, stop. And then I'll speak. But that's why I have music on all my podcasts, so you can't hear the breathing and my dog's drinking the water, slurp, slurp, slurp in the background.
Honestly, you don't have to worry about any of this, because people now I did my research about this one. People become more interested to listen to someone who's authentic and with the same surrounding as they are.
Yeah.
So don't overcomplicate it with high production, everything. It's like, it's only my phone and the camera, and it's in my place. So I'll make sure that, okay, it's natural and no complications and production capacities. But listen, I would love to support you on this. It's really cool.
Thank you. That's so nice.
It's really cool.
I'm moving to a new place, inshallah. So I'll get you there after we've settled.
It is an absolute pleasure, Jouhayna.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's definitely an inspiring journey, 100%. And again, we'll have another discussion in the future about your next journey for sure. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I really appreciate the feedback and the comments I'm receiving. It's ongoing improvement on the show, and the feedback from amazing guests. It's really a pleasure. Special thanks to Adam, my son, who's helping me in the podcast production. You need a producer.
Yes, I do. I'm ready.
But yeah, listen, watch, share, review on your favorite podcast apps and on YouTube channel. Superhuman Switch. Get your switch on.
Switch.
Jouhayna, pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time.